Sadness comes to mind, bitterness, resentment, and still a little bit of pain. My relationship with him, it's been a struggle. It's been definitely a journey. My current relationship with him has gotten better over time, but starting off, it was almost like non-existent. I did, my stepdad, he was the first memory that I can remember of my stepdad. I was 3 years old and I was sitting on my grandmother's couch in her living room, and there was a bowl of green grapes, and I was feeding him green grapes, and he was pretending to bite my fingers. So that was my first interaction with a father figure who eventually became my stepdad. But as far as my biological father, I didn't know who he was. And the first time that I can remember seeing my dad in person, I was 7 years old. He came to Houston, Texas with this woman and her kids, and he gave me and my brother some gifts, and he gave me this white baby doll that I remember, this little white baby doll, and my brother laughed when he gave it to me and was like, she doesn't play with dolls anymore. Like, what in the world are you giving her a doll? So he didn't know me at all, didn't know my interests, didn't know what I liked. And that was the first time that I saw my dad. After that, I very rarely spoke to him on the phone. And a couple of times when I would speak to him on the phone, he would ask me for my shoe size, my dress size, my clothing size, and would say, yeah, I'm gonna send you some clothes in the mail for Christmas or a birthday gift. And I would wait, and my mom would say, yeah, like he's really gonna send it. We'll see. I would hear her say that. And sure enough, I wouldn't get anything in the mail. And it was almost like reinforcing the things that I would hear my mom say when she would refer to him, the sperm donor, because he didn't pay child support when I was younger. And it wasn't until I was in college when he was forced to pay back child support through the courts. And then the second time I saw him was at my brother's high school graduation. He showed up with his new wife, and it was very awkward when he came to our house. That was my second time seeing him in my entire, at that time, 16 years of life. And it was very weird. And I just remember him saying, call me Dad. And I was like, Dad? But that's my daddy. And that was my stepdad, the one that I would connect to as Daddy. And it took me a long time to even understand and realize that my stepdad was not my biological father. I mean, we looked different. His complexion was darker complexion. We had different last names, and he treated me just like I was his daughter. So there was no distinction between me and my siblings when it came to my stepdad. So when he was telling me or asking me to call him Dad, I was definitely reluctant, because I would always hear him being referred to as the sperm donor, and not Dad. And then my mom would casually say, yeah, your daddy's on the phone, or your dad's on the phone. But after the conversation, she'd roll her eyes and say, "Ugh, it's just a sperm donor," and would say things like that. And in my experience with him, once I came to Atlanta for college, a lot of the things that I would hear her say was almost being reinforced by the interactions that I would have with him. So I came to Atlanta to Oglethorpe University for college, and I came here by myself. My original home state is in Missouri, so I was far away from my parents and my siblings. We are all over the United States. So I was here, I felt like alone. My biological father, he lived relatively close to Atlanta, and the third time I saw him, he came, he picked me up. Again, he said, "Call me Dad," because I was not really referring to him as anything because I wasn't quite sure what to call him, and it was just very awkward. And I remember him grabbing my hands and talking to me and telling me to call him Dad, and it just felt a little awkward because I had not felt his touch before, be it a handshake or a hug. So it was very strange. It was like a stranger touching me, and it invoked kind of like awkward, weird feelings when I first interacted with him. And then my stepmother, she, I think, was the bridge that kind of help us like reconcile our relationship. She was very intentional over time with kind of almost like not forcing him, but kind of making suggestions to maybe you should do a dinner date with Toya, like spend time with her. And I know that was not like her place or her responsibility or burden to take on, but I know she was definitely a bridge in kind of helping our relationship. But it was very awkward. And even when I was here in Atlanta, I would barely talk to him. I would barely see him. He got me a stick shift car. I called her Nyesha because Nyesha had a lot of character and sometimes would run out of gas and wouldn't work. And, I told him I didn't know how to drive a stick. I was like, I drive an automatic, but he gave me a stick. And I felt like he gave me a car because he didn't want me to keep calling him and asking for help, because I would need help like going to the store, getting groceries and different things like that when I was in college. And so he showed me how to drive it for about 45 minutes, and he was like, "All right, drive it back to campus." And it was very nerve-wracking driving the car, but I was still grateful and very thankful for it. And I guess he was trying. He was definitely trying. And it was a very, very slow reconciliation. God has definitely been a huge instrument in my healing journey with him. It took me a long time to even understand and recognize that I had unforgiveness buried deep within my heart, even though I would say, yeah, I've forgiven him, but really I still had anger in my heart sometimes, even when my mom would mention his name or my brother would mention his name or Father's Day would come around, I would still have feelings of anger, of pain, of like Am I just like the unforgotten redheaded stepchild? Like, why don't you care about me? Or like, why am I not special? Like, why do you give my sister everything? God revealed to me that I had some unforgiveness, and I think I was about 35 years old when I was getting ready to start Becoming Eva podcast, and the Holy Spirit inside was nudging me and telling me that I needed to take care of this unforgiveness and to address the unforgiveness. And I was telling the Holy Spirit, like, I've already said I've forgiven him. Like, what more do I need to do to, to demonstrate that I have forgiven him? And so I started writing this long letter to him. It might have been 10 or 15 pages by the time I was finished with the letter. And I mailed it out to him. And in the letter, I talked about everything from my childhood, all the different things that he missed. And because he was not financially contributing to our household, I did not get to participate in everything that I wanted to participate in. I didn't get things that I wanted as a child, and I felt that he needed to know that. Like, I was an excellent volleyball player and basketball player and track runner, and my parents and family members could barely come and support me because they were busy working 2 and 3 jobs to provide for us, and I appreciate them and understood why they couldn't show up. But at the same time, it's like, well, if you were helping just a little bit, maybe that could have alleviated some of their pressure and stress that, he put on to them because they were taking care of all of us. I grew up in a very blended family with half siblings and full siblings and stepchildren or step siblings. And it was my parents really, really worked hard to provide for us and to make sure that we had a good education and that all of our needs were met. And I felt like my dad had moved on. He had this new life, this new family. Him and his wife, or my stepmother, they had a daughter. And I have witnessed her growing up with him and her mom, and she gets to have everything. It's basically like an only child, and he's there for her. He supports her. She plays piano and has piano lessons and swim lessons, and the house that they live in, it's like this huge house, and it has a guest house and a tree house and a pool and all these different things that we didn't get growing up. And I still feel like sometimes that we're just like the forgotten children, or the ones that really don't matter, or the redheaded step kids. And I put it all in the letter and just kind of let him know how hurt I was. And it wasn't my intention to hurt him, but I think it was a way of me processing my feelings. And at the end of the letter, I said, whether it changes you or not, I forgive you. And I was very intentional about saying that I forgave him in the letter when I sent it to him. But I think that was the beginning of like true healing for me, was releasing it and letting it go, and like releasing him from that hold that he had on me of the bitterness and the pain that I was still feeling, even though I said, oh, I've forgiven him. Like, I have my own family, I have my own kids. Like, I'm just gonna make sure that my kids grow up with stability and have both parents, and they get to do activities that I didn't get to do as a kid. And I think it stems from my upbringing and the hurt that I've experienced in life. And God just really showed me that I really needed to deal with that unforgiveness that I truly still had. And I definitely think it's a journey. I still think I'm processing, still think I'm healing. I'm not like 100% healed from it.